Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest presentation this morning on all things Canada, exploring Canada with Railbookers. Thank you for tuning in to the next of our on-demand presentations. My name is Anna Davis, and I will be your host for our time today looking at our favourite Canadian trips to do by rail. So without further ado, let's get started. I know some of you tune in to these on-demand webinars relatively often, but for those of you who are perhaps new to Railbookers, let me just give you a little bit of an overview about what we do and what makes us a little bit different. So we create independent, tailor-made holidays by rail. We've been doing so for a long time now. It's really our area of expertise so that we can give recommendations on the best routes, the best timings, to make sure that you really have the best possible holiday. We can book up to 2 years in advance, which makes us unique in the rail space. And we have the largest selection of rail holidays for you to choose from a luxurious, iconic, once-in-a-lifetime trip to multi-country cities, multi-country journeys, perhaps extending your river cruise or ocean cruise, or indeed creating a trip from scratch, because we do have the option to do that as well. Really, if the train goes there, so do we. That's really the motto that we run by, and so we can pop together anything at all that you would like. Now, if you're in the trip planning stages and you would like to access our digital brochure, then we do have a range of those available, and they are all online on our website, railbookers.co.uk. We have the range from the worldwide trips to our sister brand, Amtrak Vacations, looking at all things North American, through to Scotland, luxury journeys, Spain, you name it really. But there's a range of brochures available for you to download, as I say, on railbookers.co.uk for you to start that trip planning process, whether that's a holiday or a getaway for this year or indeed into 2023. We still have our maximum flexibility policy in place. This has been giving peace of mind to our customers for approaching 2 years now, and you do have the option to change the dates of your holiday, the duration, or even the destination itself up to 60 days prior to departure. If you have any questions on that, if you'd like any more information on that, please do give us a call on 0203 780 2222. Now, as I mentioned, our holidays are independent. They're not escorted. You're not traveling as part of a group. But if you do need our assistance whilst you're away, you do benefit from the 24-hour support that we have from our global team. So we have staff across the world in California, in Massachusetts, in the US, as well as in Canada, in Australia, and also here in the UK. So if you need assistance, you have any issues whilst you're traveling, then there's always somebody available to help from the Railbookers team. We work with rail partners around the world, some of whom are on the screen here, and we create very much a one-stop shop for you. So our holidays, as you'll see when we look at the Canadian holidays shortly, very much inclusive of not only the rail tickets, but the hotel accommodation, sightseeing, excursions, ferries, planes, flights as well. So very much taking care of all of the elements of your trip, but as I say, up to 2 years in advance. So you can book now right through to January 2024. And lastly, but not leastly, before we move on to look at the Canadian trips in some more detail, just a brief mention on sort of COVID protocols and how the railways are maintaining a safe environment, and indeed have been for a number of years now. They have been well versed in all things COVID for approximately 2 years, and where traffic is now opening to the leisure market, more people choosing to travel again for their holidays, well, the rail carriers are already very well experienced at maintaining a safe environment on board, whether that's wearing the facial coverings in the stations and on the trains, whether that's continuing with an increased cleaning regime both during the journey and at the end of each service, or focusing also on contactless ticket control, so there isn't the passing of documents between train staff and customers. But we do have a dedicated guest relations team who can answer any specific questions you may have on particular routes, particular countries, particular train companies. So should you have any specific questions, again, do please give us a call on that number that you see, 0203 780 2222, and they'll be very happy to assist. So without further ado, let's dive into Canada, and really looking forward to sharing 5 fantastic journeys with you today, fantastic holidays, which I hope will give you an idea of the range of Canadian trips that we have available. So we'll be looking firstly at the East Coast here, as well as some of our cross-country Canada holidays, the West Coast, and also focusing also on the Rockies themselves, just to give you, as I say, an idea of the range of trips that we have available to choose from. And do bear in mind that all of these holidays can be customized. You have a number of options available on all of our trips to really make it your own. So you don't have to have anything in it that you don't want. If you want to add extra nights, if you want to take nights out, if you want to add flights here, we can take care of the transatlantic flights for you because we're ATOL protected. Really, anything that you would like, you can adapt, change, add, take away. So we'll start with our Great Cities of Eastern Canada by rail. This is an 8-day holiday with a starting price of £949. And it begins in Toronto. So you have 2 nights in Toronto before then traveling up to Ottawa, the capital of Canada. You have a night stay there before crossing into Quebec to Montreal for a 2-night stay, and then up to Quebec City for the end of the trip with a 2-night stay there. And we do include sightseeing tours in all of those cities whilst you're traveling. As I say, our long-haul holidays, like our Canadian trips here, the pricing doesn't include the flights from the UK, but we are ATOL protected, so we can take care of that with it being fully protected for your peace of mind. If you'd like us to add those on to the holiday package, then we can, of course, do that. Let's take a look at some of the destinations included in this holiday. So as I say, you'll start with 2 nights in Toronto, and during your time in Toronto, we have the hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour pass included. So that gives you access really to all of the major iconic Toronto locations, including the Royal Ontario Museum, the St. Lawrence Market, the Hockey Hall of Fame, and lots to see and do in Toronto. If you wanted to extend your stay and add in a day trip to Niagara Falls, we can also take care of that, for example. So the sightseeing can also be adapted to suit exactly your preferences and what you're interested in. You'll then move on to Ottawa, and again you have a hop-on, hop-off tour for your night stay, your 2 days here, and that gives you access to just over 75 preferred sites across the route of Canada's capital. You'll see the various embassies, Parliament Hill, the Prime Minister's residence, the National Gallery of Canada also in Ottawa. So again, lots to see and do here. It may be worth extending your stay to stay a little longer. And then as you pass into Quebec, you'll start to enjoy the sort of European atmosphere of this part of Canada, starting with Montreal, where you can visit the Olympic Stadium, the Notre Dame Basilica, Place Jacques Cartier as well. Some lovely old cobbled streets to wander around, which, as I say, have a real European flair to them. And then ending your stay with 2 nights in Quebec City. And you have a guided tour of Quebec City to round off your trip here, where you'll have plenty of time to take in the French-Canadian history, explore the ramparts, the castles, and of course visit Le Chateau Frontenac, which is one of the most photographed hotels, I think, in the world. So that's a little bit of Eastern Canada on its own. There are lots of options to include a bit of Eastern Canada with crossing Canada over to the west. And our Ultimate Canada Coast to Coast is a great holiday if that's what you're looking to do. If you want to explore Canada in all of its glory, then this is certainly one to consider. This is a 17-day holiday with a starting price of £3,249. And this time starts in Halifax. So very much going all the way from one coast to the other, as the name suggests. You start with 1 night in Halifax on the west coast, before then travelling overnight on Via Rail to Quebec City. You have a night there before travelling down to Montreal for 2 nights, and then on to Toronto for 2 nights. Now, with this trip, you do get the day trip out to Niagara Falls included whilst you're in Toronto. Then after your second night in Toronto, that's really when the rail highlight starts, and you'll board Via Rail's flagship service, the Canadian. The Canadian, in its full length, runs for 4 nights between Toronto and Vancouver, which makes it one of the longest passenger carrying services in the world there, and it travels both ways as well. So if you wanted to, for example, do this trip in reverse and start in Vancouver and travel across to Halifax, you can also do it that way. But you'll spend 3 nights on board the Canadian, traveling between Toronto and Jasper. You have a 2-night stay in Jasper, and then on to Banff via a shuttle for a 1-night stay in Banff National Park in the heart of the Rockies. And then it's back on Via Rail for the final night to travel between Jasper and Vancouver for a 2-night stay to round off your trip there. Lots included here, including the sightseeing tours of Quebec, Montreal, Niagara Falls, as I mentioned, as well as some great excursions and sightseeing in the Rockies as well, including a trip to the Columbia Icefield and the Athabasca Glacier, including the Glacier Skywalk, which I think we'll see a little bit later on. So you'll start in Halifax, as I mentioned, a beautiful seaside community. And if seafood is something you enjoy eating, certainly something I do, you will be spoilt for choice, I'm told, by colleagues, with the incredible seafood that you have available to choose from in Halifax. You will then move on to Toronto via Quebec and Montreal, of course. And you will have this day trip included out to Niagara Falls from your hotel, taken back to your hotel at the end of the day, a full day out at Niagara, including a trip on the Maid of the Mist as well. And it apparently, over the falls, it roars with as much as 6 million cubic feet of water every minute, which is ridiculous to kind of consider. It's been a long time since I was Niagara, about 30 years, but I do remember the noise that it made. And as I say, we can add in the day trip to Niagara for any of our trips that include Toronto if you'd like to visit. You'll then move on to the Canadian, traveling into the heart of the Rockies here into Jasper National Park. Have some time also in Banff before finishing the trip with 2 nights in the beautiful city of Vancouver. A real metropolitan mix in Vancouver. You'll have an option to head over to the peninsula known as Granville Island. You'll be able to go into Chinatown, visit the historic part of the city, Gastown, which has a real sort of old world charm and quaint sort of setup there. So lots to see in Vancouver. You do also have the admission to the Vancouver Lookout as well, for phenomenal views over the city. Now, if the Canadian Rockies are something that you're particularly interested in, and that's where you'd like to focus your trip, then consider the Grand Circle of the Canadian Rockies here. This is a 9-day holiday starting from £3,199, very much a round trip, starting in Vancouver and back to Vancouver. So let me explain how this one works. The major difference with this trip is that it also includes the Rocky Mountaineer, as many of our Canadian trips do. So we can combine both travelling on board Via Rail, the national rail carrier of Canada, as well as including the luxury navy blue and gold carriages of the Rocky Mountaineer as well. So as I say, this starts with a 1-night stay in Vancouver. You will then travel on the Rocky Mountaineer from Vancouver through to Banff. Now, this is a daytime service, the Rocky Mountaineer, of course. So you'll travel during the day to Kamloops. On the first day, you'll disembark the train in Kamloops and stay overnight in a hotel in Kamloops, before then boarding the following morning to travel through to Banff. You'll then finish your time on the Rocky Mountaineer in Banff. You'll have a 2-night stay there, as well as a night staying in the famous, beautiful setting of Lake Louise. Then you'll transfer up to Jasper for a 1-night stay there, before then coming back to Vancouver on board the Canadian, so on board Via Rail's train there back to Vancouver. So we'll have a little look at travelling on the Rocky Mountaineer. As I say, it's a daytime service, so you have lunch and dinner included on the train before then disembarking to stay in a hotel. You have 2 choices of class of service on board the Rocky Mountaineer. There is Silverleaf and there is Goldleaf. So let's have a little look at the differences there. This is Goldleaf, incidentally, with the observation viewing platform at the back of the train for a little bit of fresh air whilst you travel. Silverleaf is this class of service here. So it's a single dome, and you have beautiful panoramic windows, as you can see. So you have fantastic views. The seats recline, they're incredibly comfortable, and you do get the beautiful food prepared freshly ordered on the train itself by the private chefs, and you enjoy all of the service that you do in Gold Leaf as well. Staff can't do enough. They provide excellent commentary, suggestions for your next photograph. They will explain the areas that you're travelling through, how the train is dealing with the landscape that it's passing through, as well as serving drinks and food throughout. So that's the Silverleaf. You travel in that single deck dome car with those windows. If you are looking to do something a little extra special and perhaps give yourself a little treat, then Gold Leaf is certainly one to consider. This is Gold Leaf here. Now, the major difference with Gold Leaf is that it has an upper deck and a lower deck. So you'll spend most of the journey in this, the upper part of the dome car, and you can see you have the panoramic windows with uninterrupted views, really, of the scenery that you're traveling through. You can see the host on board who will look after you and provide that commentary as you travel. And then when it's time for breakfast and for lunch, as you're traveling, you'll then travel downstairs via a little spiral staircase to the dining car. And so you'll have your meals here before then moving back up to the top floor to continue the journey for those views. So you'll then travel, as I say, on the first day through to Kamloops. You're travelling through British Columbia, fantastic views of the Cascade Mountains, and you follow the Fraser Canyon and River as you head in to the Rockies and along to Kamloops. Then, after your second day on board Rocky Mountaineer, you'll reach Banff, and you'll have a couple of nights here, plenty of time to explore the beautiful mountain town. You can travel on the Banff gondola up to the top of Sulphur Mountain, as you see here. Fantastic views from the summit, not only of Banff National Park, but of the wider Canadian Rockies area. And then you'll also have a night staying in Lake Louise. So that day you'll leave Banff, you'll have a scenic tour through Banff National Park, and that will travel past many of the beautiful emerald lakes, fantastic waterfalls, and then your tour ends that day in Lake Louise. You'll stay in the resort there for a night before transferring up to Jasper and then back to Vancouver. Now, perhaps wanting to combine a little bit more of Canada with the Rocky Mountaineers experience, then our Trans-Canada and Rockies adventure could just be a trip for you. This is a 13-day holiday with a starting price of £4,249, and it begins with a 2-night stay in Toronto, again with that day trip out to Niagara. Then you'll follow the same route as the previous trip, travelling up to Jasper. You have time in Banff and Lake Louise, but you'll also then finish the holiday with the Rocky Mountaineer from Banff to Vancouver. So again, combining fantastic city stays, fantastic scenery, great rail experiences, both on board via rail and on the Rocky Mountaineer, all in one trip. We do include sightseeing tours also of the Icefield Parkway in Banff National Park, as well as a scenic lake cruise in Banff National Park itself, and the Jasper Skytram, all included in this trip. So I mentioned the Skywalk, and this is, you'll enjoy this on many of our Canadian trips, but this is the famous Skywalk. You have a fantastic, very unique perspective over the impressive Somwopta Valley. You're about 280 meters above that valley, and if it's a day as clear as that, you have fantastic uninterrupted views. You do also have lunch included on this day trip at the Columbia Icefield Glacier Discovery Centre, and from there you'll then travel to Lake Louise to check in to, of course, the world famous Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise Hotel for your overnight stay. You'll also, whilst you're in Banff National Park, as I mentioned, have a scenic lake cruise. Always think it's great to see a destination from the water. It gives a very, very different perspective and makes those mountains even more majestic when you're at water, on the water. So that's a real highlight of your time in Banff National Park. Now, lastly but not leastly, wanted to combine a suggested holiday combining both the USA and Canada And this is our Western USA and Canada journey, a 17-day holiday with a starting price of £3,499. Now, this starts in San Francisco. So you'll start by experiencing the beauty of the Pacific Northwest, heading up the west coast towards Canada. So you'll start in San Francisco before then moving up to Seattle, then on to Vancouver, and then traveling on board Via Rail all the way through from Vancouver, all the way through to Jasper, first of all, and then finishing off in Toronto. So again, some great combinations of city stays, beautiful scenic rail journeys. I mean, aside from traveling across Canada, you've also got the spectacular West Coast trip in the States as well. Really beautiful views as you travel on the Coast Starlight up the West Coast, as well as some fantastic excursions and sightseeing included. So let's take a little look at some of the other destinations we've not seen yet. San Francisco, of course, you have a 2-night stay here, and we have you staying down in Fisherman's Wharf, typically. A great place to spend some time. Fantastic choice of restaurants, again, seafood orientated. If that is something that you enjoy, you will again be spoiled for choice in San Francisco. If you wanted to extend your stay and stay in San Francisco for a little longer, we do also have options for a Napa Valley wine tour, for example, on the Napa Valley wine train, or indeed a day trip out to Yosemite National Park as well, if that's perhaps something you're interested in too. Then you'll travel up the west coast towards Seattle on the Coast Starlight, hugging the California coast as you travel. A real scenic highlight in itself, passing lots of rolling hills, mountains, rocky gorges, lots of pine forests as well. The Coast Starlight route through, then up through Oregon and Washington, is a real sightseeing experience in itself, and you have your own window to it as you travel on board Amtrak. Then you'll have time in Seattle, and time to visit, of course, the world-famous Space Needle that you see there on the screen, as well as perhaps Chihuly Gardens. A beautiful setting, Seattle. It has breathtaking views of the surrounding area. And you can also take a city tour, which, amongst other places, will take you to Pike Place Market, which has apparently a daily party that you can watch as well whilst you're there. So that sounds intriguing. You'll then travel up to Vancouver, and then travel through the Rockies. Now, I thought I would just end our time together with a little bit of an overview about traveling on board Via Rail and the accommodation that's available when you're traveling overnight. So this is very much focusing on that travel between Toronto and Vancouver, or the other way around, on board the Canadian. So let's have a little look at the options that you have available. So we start off with Via Rail's economy service in an economy accommodation. So you can see fairly wide, comfortable chairs here that do recline. You have luggage space available above your heads. You have curtains on the windows. Very similar to sort of a first class, business class airline seat. I have to say the vast majority of our customers, though, will opt for some form of sleeping accommodation, and there are a number to choose from. The most popular, though, for our customers will be this, the cabin for two. There is also a cabin for one available if you're traveling as a solo customer. Fully lockable private cabin here that has your own wash basin as well. And you do have these armchair seats that then will be adapted into an upper and lower berth sleeping arrangement for the evening. You have your own picture window there out to the fabulous scenery as you travel. You have fantastic service on board from staff, just a slightly different view here of the cabin for two. Now, if you're looking, again, perhaps to celebrate a delayed special occasion, looking to treat yourselves, then Prestige is certainly the class to consider. This is the highest class of service on board Via Rail. And as you see here in the Via Rail Prestige cabin, you have a full-size double bed. During the day, this is converted into an L-shaped sofa around the outside of the cabin, fully insulated, really cozy, heated. You have full concierge service whilst you travel. And a really, really comfortable way to travel across Canada. It's also fully en suite as well. The perks of traveling on Prestige, though, don't just end with the cabin itself. You do also then have access to the Prestige lounge car at the end of the train with those fantastic window views as you travel. You can see you have electric points to charge your devices there as well whilst you're enjoying a change of view in the lounge car, and that's also connected to the Prestige bar. And within here, during your journey, you will also have the opportunity to hear from local historians or wildlife experts. Sometimes they do wine tasting or nature talks, and that's a real highlight as well for Prestige customers. The major benefit of choosing, though, whether it's a cabin or indeed Prestige, any of the sleeping accommodation where you do have some form of a bed, is that you do get your meals included on board the train. We'll talk about that in a moment. You do, all customers, though, have access to the dome car as well. Again, another area just to change the scenery, change your view, and you can come here and enjoy those magnificent panoramic windows as you travel. As I was saying, though, everybody that has some form of sleeping accommodation on board the train, they have access to the dining car for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Again, all cooked freshly on board by the fantastic private chefs as you travel. And what Via Rail do really, really well is reflect the parts of Canada that they're traveling through. So the menu does change, whether you're coming from Vancouver, there probably will be fish included as you travel through the plains, may move to sort of lamb, beef indeed, even perhaps bison. It really very much reflects the part of Canada that you're traveling through, and the menu changes daily. There you are, just a view of one of the dishes. So thank you very much for joining us for our latest instalment of our on-demand presentations. Hope you found that insightful. Hope it's given you some ideas of exploring Canada with Railbookers in the years ahead. If you have any questions, then please do give us a call. As I mentioned, we're on 0203 780 2222, and we're open Monday to Friday 9 to 5:30. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you again on another online presentation. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.